We are officially starting, and we're going to do some introductions. But Pastor Chris, I know you're good with spontaneity. Would you do a blessing over this meeting?
Yes. Father God, I just thank you for the opportunity tonight to be with this wonderful gathering of people. Pray that you will lead us and guide us and direct us in every way. We look to you for your insight and for ways that we could position ourselves in you to help those who come across our path, or people that you put in the realm of our influence. I pray that you'll bless us now and always, for it's in your name that I pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. Thank you. So we do expect about 5 other people, but we'll go ahead and get started. We'd like to start and end on time. This is currently called the New Jersey Coalition of Religious, Spiritual, and Mental Health Leaders. The name might evolve over time, but we are gathering those people together. Main mission is to improve the mental health system in the state of New Jersey. That's our focus. We have a number of initiatives that we'll go through as the main part of this agenda. We'll look to put names next to them so that we know who's the point person. But before we get into that, what I'd love for Pastor Chris and Dr. Hines is to introduce yourselves, a bit of your background, where you are from, and why are you here? Why did you even decide to show up tonight? So, Pastor Chris?
Well, I decided to show up tonight because I'm well overdue in showing up. When I met with you and Dr. Calvin some time ago, and good to meet the others that are on the call as well. So I've just, it was time for me to finally get on. And I was honored that Dr. J. Hines could also be with us and meet the rest of the team here as well. I do think that the area of mental health is a tremendously important area for us in the ministry to be able to address in these times in which we live. And speaking from our perspective in the church world, that I think it's something that we've been a little bit behind on, kind of understanding, and also trying to prepare ourselves further to help many people this day and age who are facing many different type of mental health situations. So I'm the pastor here of Abundant Life Church of God, which is a church that we founded when I came out of college back in 1988. So I've been here 35 years and have a very multicultural, multiracial, multi-generational congregation. But we're seeing mental health needs in the largest proportions that I've ever seen them, in the 35 years I've been a pastor. So we're trying to figure out how we can get better ourselves, or how we could also partner with others and contribute to a larger cause in helping along these lines. And this is Dr. J. Hines. He has a PhD in clinical psychology. He's an ordained minister, works here with us on the staff. So I'll let him share what's on his heart as well.
Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome, Dr. Hines.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be with everybody. I think the reason why that I'm here is because that Janet's a very nice lady. She talked me into it. When I say she talked me into it, it's because
that's common.
I think so. She had talked to me about ministers and the need for mental health support. And I've seen a lot of things. Recently, I did some studies about ministers committing suicide for a book that I'm writing about Jesus, Man of Sorrows, and how that sorrow manifests in our life also, and what we can do about that from the standpoint of psychospirituality. So when she talked about that, I was immediately interested. And then she talked about some of the other initiatives, and I was able to go online and see what they are. And I'm interested in all of those things. So that's why I'm here. So my background, I began to preach when I was 14 years old. And so I've been preaching about 20 years now. No, I'm older than that. Yeah, no, I'm 60 years old. So I've been preaching for quite a while. And I had a bachelor's and master's in psychology, and then also the PhD. I had earned a JD and practiced law for a while. And I was ordained in this church, the Church of God, by my pastor sitting next to me. He's also my bishop. So I'm very interested in this and want to do whatever I can. And I think this is a unique program that Janet's developing, and really interested in being a part of it. So it's nice to meet everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think there's one more piece I discovered. You do clinical practice in an inpatient unit in Tinton Falls.
Yeah, so what we have there is it's a nursing facility, and I'm the director of the clinical and the nursing program. So what I did in this building, when they hired me, they were aware of my background. So what we did is we turned it basically into a psych facility. So I think we have maybe 20% of people without psych diagnoses and 80% with. So we're able to do some therapy there and help people. A lot of them have come out of places like care clinic, places where they really can't stay any longer. And so we pick up their therapy and do that. So I've trained the staff in dealing with these things. And I also do therapy. We do therapy right in the room, go and sit and talk with them and provide cognitive behavioral therapy. We're also able to do some spiritual therapy. Administration and the owner of the facility allows that, so we can give Bibles, pray for them. So they'll often come to my office seeking prayer, or during the little sessions that we do there during the week. So it's a fantastic thing, and it's a facility that is leading the way, where other facilities are interested now in increasing their site population, because they can see that it's done. The attitude has been over the years that these are crazy people bouncing off the walls who want nothing to do with them. But what I'm showing is it's not always that way. There are people who have led productive lives, have had or have found a diagnosis that's psychological, and they need help. So some of these people are leaving the facility. They're being recuperated, rehabilitated, and they're leaving the facility and having productive lives. So really is a success. So that is another thing that I do.
So thank you. And I'm extending this just a little bit because we don't have, the full 10, 11 people here. Dr. Hines, if you would just say one more piece about you include the spirituality into the therapy. A lot of the other details we should go off and actually tell your story more, but I found that so refreshing, because that's part of our charge, to include spirituality with psychological therapy. Could you just comment on that briefly, that you have been allowed to, you do it?
Yeah, so I really discovered this when I did my postdoc at New Hope Foundation, that some of the biggest problems that people have that lead to addiction, that lead to depression, that lead to anxiety, whole list of diagnoses is spiritual. And the way I discovered this was that many of the people came in asking for prayer when they found I was also a minister, and I would pray with them, give them a Bible, and continue therapy on the basis of having psycho-spiritual problems. So they had psychological problems that were often caused by spiritual components. We were able to win many people to the Lord, but what happened there was, in 1 month alone, I won 100 people to Christ, and they improved greatly, but some people complained. It was people that didn't believe in Christianity. So they went to the director of the program, who was my supervisor, Dr. Comerford, and said, this is going on. So he called me in and he said, just like out of the book of Acts, he said, you can't speak in this name anymore. And it's like, the name of Jesus? He said, no. He said, you can't do it. He said, because we're going to lose our funding. So they were concerned about losing their funding. So we did for a while give out Bibles, lead people to the Lord, and continue to disciple them through counseling and therapy there. So when I went over to the new building and saw that it was mostly people that had medical ailments, we began to work on the new population. And what I find with them is the same kind of thing. Many of them have left the Lord and need to come back. And when they come back, their depression clears up, their anxiety clears up, schizophrenia, schizoaffective, all these things begin to reduce when we deal with the psychospiritual issues. So most of those people are reading the Bible and are praying. They have church services now, and they go to those church services. So I have to say that I believe that one of the biggest, if not the biggest component of psychological problems for people is their spiritual life. So we address that also here doing therapy in the church. So we have a therapy program going on here, and the biggest part of what we talk about is their spiritual life. And we've seen tremendous success with some people by them getting back in a solid relationship with the Lord and stop doing things they shouldn't do before God. So I believe that even though it's one of the smallest parts of the DSM-5 in the V code, it really is probably the most powerful part of the DSM-5. Just a couple sentences. But if they would really hone in on that, they can fix a lot of these problems for people.
Thank you. That is at the core of the documentary,
Thank you, Janet.
my story, and how we want to go past just improving mental health. We want to improve mental health by integrating spirituality and the full, list of interfaith leaders. So thank you. I'm going to ask Pastor Tim to go next. We just recently met, Calvin and I have met Pastor Tim through Dale Caldwell, which some of you know. Dale does show up on this at times, but probably not tonight. So Pastor Tim, you are the Centenary University representative, and tell us a little bit about your background, and then also why are you here?
Well, thanks so much, Janet. As you indicated, I am the chaplain for Centenary University, and it is a two-charge appointment for me. I'm also the pastor of a parish church up in Sussex Borough. My work with spiritual practices and disciplines comes from my dissertation work, including and not limited to being involved in North Carolina and the Duke University Clergy Health Initiative. And through that Clergy Health Initiative, they were able to provide clergy members with specific disciplines and practices to help them reduce stress, anxiety, and improve their lives. And so the completing of that work for me is something that we're doing at Centenary University in conjunction with the Greater New Jersey Annual Conference of the United Methodist Church. And we are basically trying to duplicate the work and expand upon the work of Duke University in more than just the two spiritual practices and the one physical health practice. And so my work is with the university and the Conference of the Bishop's Office to organize retreats and programmings that'll serve clergy and their mental health needs, their spiritual needs, and their lives with God. And so that's a piece and a component of the work. It is part of a long track record of retreat work that I've done as a clergy member of the United Methodist Church. This is, one of my third or fourth appointments, including Trinity in Hackettstown and Waterloo in Byram. So my background is diverse. This is maybe one of several careers, including the military, law enforcement, and public education. So I think that our ability to offer this to clergy is important, but it also is drawn from a great deal of research that I've done with the overall stress associated with work. And so the goal is at some moment to expand our work for retreats, both remote, hybrid, and in person at Centenary for Christians who are experiencing stress and strain in their work lives and want to refocus and recenter themselves in their spiritual life with God.
So Pastor Tim, thank you for that. And you're leading us into an action step we'll talk about kind of halfway through this around the retreats that we're looking to do for pastoral care as part of our overall project here. I'd like Heather Sims to go next. And anyone who has been on this for the last few months has heard me talk about CSPNJ. So Heather's going to define what that is. Heather and I and the whole organization out of Freehold, we have been partnering for a few months on support services for the whole mental health system throughout the state. So Heather, if you would introduce us to what is CSPNJ, where is it located, and what do you do? And then later on, we're going to actually talk about some of the specific initiatives we'd like you to comment on.
So collaborative support programs, thank you for having me, I just want to say, and I appreciate the time. Collaborative support programs is a statewide peer-led behavioral health agency that started in 1984. And we really started to improve the mental health system. That was our goal. And it was started by individuals receiving care in the mental health system and living in boarding homes in Asbury Park that weren't satisfied with the services and care that they were receiving. Through our advocacy efforts and partnership, as in our name, collaborative support programs, we have grown over the years. We started as drop-in centers, self-help. in the basement of a church, actually, in downtown Asbury, and have expanded. So now we provide supported housing throughout the state, and that's an ongoing service. We have community wellness centers in 20 of our counties, and also on the grounds of the 3 of the 4 state psychiatric hospitals. We have 3 Pure Run wellness respites, which are phenomenal. That is a crisis diversion program. So we know the traumas experienced in an individual going into the hospital and receiving crisis care in a hospital system. So this is an alternative to that, and it is by choice. We base our services on the 8 dimensions of wellness. And yes, that includes spirituality in there. And also promote the choice of individuals defining their own recovery and path, and us supporting them on that journey and gaining resources, skills, knowledge. And I hope to share my knowledge through different entities that I'm involved in. My role is Deputy Director of Peer Advocacy, but I started my journey at this agency as being somebody who was homeless and experiencing a mental health crisis with 2 children and not having someplace to go. So that is where my passion comes in giving back to our communities throughout the state and really addressing some of these fundamental problems within our system of mental health care.
Heather, thank you so much. Those of us who are near Freehold, we can actually go and
not just near Freehold. I want to welcome an invitation. Our community wellness centers are low barrier services. You have someone in your congregation, someone in your community. All you have to do is have them walk down during our open hours. Pick up the phone call. You don't need to show identification. You don't need to have health insurance. This is a place where we really meet people where they're at, and we help link them to all those different resources so they can get involved. If they express that they're lacking in the area of spirituality, we help them explore what are their choices and where can they go to reduce those barriers. If it's physical health, mental health, isolation, these are all the things that we're really addressing in our community wellness centers.
Pastor Chris, you're leaning in. I don't know if you were looking to have a question. We're still introducing, but did you have a question or comment about because they're right around the corner from you in Freehold. Oh, you're muted.
Yeah. So we're in Freehold.
Well, our main administration building is at 11 Spring Street, and our community wellness center is on Bannard. I think it's 17 Bannard Street. We also have a location in Neptune as well.
Yeah, I'll send out the detail, but I wanted you to know, like, we need to do a field trip where any of us go and feel what it's like. We'll send out the link where you can find them all over the state. What I also loved when I found out that you have a wellness center in some of the state psychiatric hospitals. And I was in 1979 put in for one night at Trenton State Psychiatric Hospital. And Dr. Hines, what did you say? That's a rough place. That's a rough one. But now they have a wellness center on the first floor. It's fabulous. That's great progress to say, even if the hospital still needs to get some work. So we'll come back to Heather because there are a number of action items we have that we're doing with CSBNJ. And it's just good to know some of these services we don't even know are right in our backyard. So, Reverend Sparks, I'm glad you showed up because you are going next on the agenda after we finish the introductions. And you've been here since the beginning in the fall. I absolutely hope to introduce you to Pastor Chris and Dr. Hines because you're also right around the corner from each other. So would you do your introduction, Reverend Sparks?
Ron Sparks. I'm the pastor of Bethlehem Church in Freehold. I'm coming at this at a little different level. Mine was through personal experience, and out of that came advocacy. I didn't know how to deal with the experience. I didn't like the way my son was treated when he had a crisis, and I began to question why he was treated the way he was treated. And so what it caused me to do was to reach out to learn as much as I could. I joined NAMI. And I struggled with it emotionally until I went to my first NAMI meeting and got to hear what others were going through. And once I was able to hear it, it sort of helped me emotionally to deal with it. But then it caused a burden almost to learn as much as I could to be an advocate for people who, when you go through these crisis episodes, and they're not listened to, particularly when you're a minority and you're not listened to, and you just follow the procedures and policies rather than listen to the support system that's around them. And as I got to learn more about it, they handle it totally wrong. I won't say totally, a good chunk of it was totally wrong. And so what I began to do was determine how I could best help. And then as a pastor, not only, look to pray and help people through it, but also help them find the necessary help they may need. And I know, particularly in the Black church, a lot of people don't talk about mental health issues. And so therefore, we prayed you through that, rather than pray, get the wisdom and knowledge and understanding on what to do from that prayer, to help you get through your process, and also the importance of walking with the individual as they go through that process. So then I got involved with the chaplain at the Monmouth County Prosecution Office. We then, from there, I went through crisis intervention team training, which talked about de-escalation and how to deal with issues with persons going through crisis, to walk along with mental health and law enforcement. Later, I became a chaplain at the sheriff's office, and we're working with them to see how we can help them. And I just had a meeting with the resiliency officers on Monday, and just to see how I can support them as well as the officers, because so many times the resiliency officers do so much to help others, and no one's talking with them. And so one of them appreciated the fact that I offered to be a listener for them, as well as I get to know them. And so mine is not out of a necessarily a background in mental health. Mine is more from advocacy and just being a pastor to people, whether they're in my congregation or not. And so that's kind of where I'm coming from. And Heather, I was listening to what you do. We started a nonprofit, started from our food pantry, but the program is actually a self-sufficiency program. And so I would love to meet you and talk about how we can partner together. I'm all about collaboration and partnerships, because I don't want to reinvent the wheel. You already got some things going on. And so therefore, as part of people becoming more self-sufficient, I'm sure that there are mental health barriers that goes beyond what the psychology and psychiatry goes. I'm sure there's a spiritual component to it that nobody's addressing. So they go through these vicious cycles. And so I want to make sure that we can offer whatever kind of support we can offer as they become self-sufficient. And so to partner with people like Heather and you, it gives me tools that I can use as I minister to my church, but the community.
Excellent. Thank you. And Reverend Sparks already participated in being filmed for the docu-series. And we're just piecing that together. Pastor Tim will be filmed on January 22nd. And Pastor Chris and Dr. Hines, we can talk with you about also filming if you wish. And we'll talk about, what you'd like to say in it. So everybody knows Dr. Calvin. Calvin, if you want to just briefly introduce yourself, but then I'm going to say, why are you still here after a year and a half? And what has happened to you and your work in this year and a half? Because you're the longest team member in this project. And you're muted. You have to unmute.
I have learned in meetings.
Brian, you might want to. Okay.
I have learned in meetings like this that I think I belong more with you pastors than I do with the people I work with. I think I am in the the realm of the lost, I worked for the biggest mental health service provider in the state with University Behavioral Health Services at Rutgers University. And I have great difficulty having them have any conversations about spirituality. My goal is to have the field of psychiatry and then eventually medicine make spirituality a major part of their approach to medicine. I think it is a source of healing. I've been doing, I'm an addiction psychiatrist and a child and adolescent psychiatrist. So I've been working with spiritual experience for 35 years. And in listening to all of you, a little bit about my background, my father was a minister in the state of Maryland, a small rural minister. But 40 years ago, the University of Maryland would have ministers come in every year for conferences about mental health and their clergy responsibilities, stresses, whatever. So somehow they were way ahead of the time. So that was just part of my upbringing. I come to New Jersey and it's bereft of any real relationship between you guys and us guys. And I really think it's time to make it visible and organized and much more effective. Mental health services are really in a crisis, and honestly, I'm not hearing them know what to do. It's anything more than they've been doing for the past 30 years.
Therein, why we're doing this.
Right. And I also come from this personally. I've had various spiritual experiences, and I've had a diagnosis of a major depressive disorder for 35 years. My father had bipolar disorder. My aunt had bipolar disorder. So I've sort of seen the good and I've seen the bad. And out of all of it, the mental health system is truly missing the role of spirituality. And I love hearing you guys talk about it, especially those of you, we need more psychiatrists that have clergy backgrounds. You guys are clergy with psychological and mental health backgrounds. We have almost none of the other. So any way we can get together and carry on a real dialogue, I think it'll be very fruitful, because I have a lot of colleagues that would listen to what you're saying, and they would listen.
Colleagues in the medical field.
Yes, in the psychiatric field. They're looking for it, and you, all of you, all four of you have the language that they can hear. And we just don't have a forum for it to happen yet.
Well, I just added another item, and it will be sent out with the minutes here to do that. This initiative started November 2nd when we went to Rutgers University Medical School. And the chairperson of the medical school, who is also the president of the American Psychiatric Association, lucky for us, was sponsoring it. And if you haven't watched the link, we have a video link that covers what happened at Rutgers on November 2nd. For many of us, we were astonished that psychiatrists were talking about the research of spirituality and the integration with medicine. So we're picking up on that to try to build on what Rutgers had started, even though Calvin does not have, a large group of colleagues supporting it. It at least was started at that conference. So we will do that. But the action step I'm going to add is to have a larger, day or half a day to bring more of the medical psychiatrists in with clergy and have a full dialogue. So thank you for that. So Brian will come back. Brian is our producer and director on the documentary series as well as the movie. So Brian, if you would introduce yourself and also comment on what really struck you to pour your heart, mind, body, soul into this project? Because Brian gave us a few months of pro bono work all before this year started to get up and running. So Brian, if you want to introduce yourself and why you are here in this project.
Well, hi everybody. Again, my name is Brian Nitto. I'm a producer, director, cinematographer. I've worked in a lot of various industries, and about a good decade ago, working for a sports network, I started to kind of hone the skills of storytelling and creating documentaries, longer format content, and really kind of honing my skills. And then with that in mind, being a contractor at the time, I was able to navigate between different genres and started working with nonprofits. Started working on some campaigns on a global aspect, and really started to kind of reshape the way I think, the way I go about a career, the way I go about life. And so I've been kind of making an effort to be passionate about the work that I do, enjoy the work that I do, and the subject matter. The one thing that's got me here to this point, what struck a chord, was the emotional impact from Janet's story, as well as others, that just stopped me in my tracks. It actually took a solid week of reflecting to get myself kind of up to, I guess, speed, as far as, everybody's story is so intricate and delicate, and the fact that we're living in a modern society, a lot of these things just go unnoticed. And I think the one thing that I possess is the ability to create dialogue, create contents, and be disruptive in a good way. I say that because I've worked in different genres and different industries, and able to take kind of certain experiences and do it differently. And it's been noticed. It's taken an impact, a good impact. A lot of my work that I've done in certain categories have been recognized, but I think it's heartwarming to know that I can change things in a certain aspect. And I think what the conversations I've been engulfed in, I need to be able to create something, so it can make an impact, it can make a difference. And a lot of these stories have been ongoing throughout the years, and it's just, every day I think of what could I be doing now, so I'm really trying to take a proactive role with this documentary and get all the right people, the conversations, and work on all the particulars to get things moving in a very fast pace. Because that's kind of how I work. I like to create dialogue and get things going, get a certain synergy going. So I see a lot of moving parts, but I'm trying to navigate and meet all the right people.
So we're blessed to have you, Brian. We can find people with technical ability, but you have a personal passion around this topic. And so we're glad you're here tonight. I want to jump into the first agenda item with Reverend Sparks, and Heather can chime in on this. I posted it on the agenda, and Reverend Sparks sent me some emails about a bill that was being passed, and then also some events in Monmouth County about Arrive Together. I forgot the other name, but I just wanted you, Reverend Sparks, to comment on those two items just to inform. And Heather might have a comment or two, just so that we keep the current events flowing. And then I want to walk through all of the action plans we have for this year. So Reverend Sparks. Mute.
Sorry. As part of me being involved, I get a lot of information from various sources. And so I know that the current prosecutor is very involved in community engagement and wanting to make sure that law enforcement, particularly from his office, does everything necessary to meet the needs of the citizens of Monmouth County. And so along with CIT, they talk to the chiefs about submit as many persons of law enforcement to be a part of CIT. They came up with these two initiatives. One is called Arrive Together, where a crisis team will go out together, whether it's a mental health individual, law enforcement, or whomever they're going in a crisis situation. They will be able to ride together to or arrive together, because sometimes you can't ride with law enforcement, arrive together at the crisis to try to best meet the need. And then there's Link to Care. It's a referral follow-up program, so that if there is issues, that they can follow up with them, and they work with faith-based organizations to see how we can work together with the prosecution office on these two initiatives. The bill.
Just before you finish that, there's a date that we can actually show up in Freehold.
Yeah, on January 22nd at 2:00. There's a registration page in which Janet can send to you that you can register for if you want to hear more about it, and see if you want to be a part of that.
And there's a February date as well.
And February, that date is if we have a We Are Monmouth, and that's when clergy get together with the prosecution office and we talk about how we can work together to make the community better and how we can partner together. That's what that date is. That doesn't necessarily have anything to do with mental health. That's just basically for any clergy that want to partner with the prosecution office in best meeting the needs of the people of Monmouth County.
What is happening January 22nd? At 2:00, I couldn't quite.
That's the Arrive Together. They're going to talk more about that, and the Link to Care. Those two programs, initiatives that the prosecution office is starting.
So that's a in-person thing or Zoom or?
I believe it's going to be Zoom. It will tell you. I believe it's going to be Zoom.
It tells you when you register.
Yeah, it'll tell you when you register.
You'll send me something?
Yeah.
May I say something, Janet? The email I sent you yesterday, I just sent a letter to blast an editor in the Star Ledger about the program that Reverend Sparks you're talking about and the Senate bill.
Yes, you did.
Because I hope you might have some connection with that. They're in reinventing a wheel that's already in place in New Jersey, and we're missing. You like collaboration? We're missing the greatest opportunity for collaboration. And if that Senate bill gets passed, it's going to undo part of what's already in place. The 988 services that are a national program is designed for crisis teams to be set up, but they are underfunded. If we set up a whole other set of crisis teams that have other money, then they're going to compete, and neither of them are going to do very well. So I'd like to talk and see how we can do something before that Senate bill gets finally passed and funded.
I believe it's on the governor's desk already, isn't it?
Yeah, just hold on for a second. I'm going to watch the 15-minute mark. So this is a topic that I just want Heather and Ron Reverend Sparks to comment on of what is this bill, so we're aware. And then it actually leads into our action steps. And what I want to do is find out who wants to be involved in this conversation offline. So we'll actually go through all these items within the 15 minutes. So Heather, if you would comment about the bill, Reverend Sparks, comment on the bill. At least we know what the issue is and who wants to talk afterwards. Heather?
Yeah, and Dr. Chatlos, thank you for bringing that piece up. I think there's a lot of different initiatives going on, and I think we all have the same goal. How do we reduce police response when somebody is in a mental health crisis so they can be supported by their communities? I think we all on this group right now agree to that. I want to learn more and hear about where the intent was with the legislation 4250. I did read over it this evening when I got home from work before the call. And believe me, I understand reducing that. but I have questions about how that's going to coordinate. And I represent the Coalition of Mental Health Consumer Organizations as well. So I invite anyone to attend that monthly meeting that I have, because I'm well versed in the ARRIVE programs, the 988, the mobile response, which is called MCORTS, will be announced probably within the next 2 weeks for all of the 9 regions that were developed. And yes, they are underfunded and they are peer driven. And I was happy to see in the new legislation, though we have, I think coordination is a good word to use. I was very happy to see that they have the peer involvement. I just want to learn more about the response, how people are going to call into it, because right now that's where I want to learn more about that. And I'm always happy to share any of the information that I have in the mental health legislation and policy, since that's where my focus is. So if anyone wants to contact me offline, and I can also share other ways that you can get involved in listening to what is going on and fixing our mental health system in the state of New Jersey.
So Heather, thank you. If you want to post a comment of some of those groups that you run, I'll also then take it and send it out. Last minute or so, Reverend Sparks, did you want to say anything about the law? Because I believe it was put up in front, on Monday.
Yeah.
Is there anything else?
The one thing that I'll say is probably the reason why there's separate initiatives is the foundation of them are coming from different places. And because the person that's dealing with this deals a lot with social justice. So when you're dealing in the African-American community and they're the ones receiving the brunt of a lot of the misinterpretation of mental health, and all of a sudden somebody gets shot or something happens. So while I don't know the total foundation of it, just know who it came from and sort of some of the underpinning. It probably just depends on the lens by which some of these initiatives are occurring. And so if they don't know what's happening, or even if they do, just like we do in a lot of things, we sort of pigeonhole ourselves into what we are working on. And while the other may be helpful, we want to make sure that, things are progressing in the areas that we want them to progress. So that I would just add on to great collaboration, but we also must understand with the foundation of why someone's pushing a particular bill. I sent this to you to share with you, so you saw information that I receive when I get information.
I appreciate that. And we open that up to anyone to send important information around the state of New Jersey on the mental health movement. And then we add it to our encyclopedia that we're collecting here. So I'm going to take that topic and move into some of the action steps. And what I'd like to do on these action steps came up over only 2 months of different people recommending steps that we wanted this coalition to do. And I would say the coalition probably has close to 15, maybe 20 people involved. And various ones show up at different times, and everybody provides a new piece of information. One of the action steps is, let me just see here. Okay. I'll start off on the top here. Establish a base of operations at Centenary University. So Calvin and Pastor Tim, that we are starting that under the leadership of Dale Caldwell. So we now have a physical university setting with a beautiful conference center, the TV studio, horse stables, and lots of other facilities around it. That is really a base of operation for both the filming of the documentary, but to bring groups of people together and host dialogues and retreats. So that first one is in process, and we've made progress. A second step was to host mental health first aid training for the clergy, for the various religious and spiritual leaders. We don't have anybody leading that initiative. It's on the list. Does anyone have any opinion that that's needed? This came up from one member of the clergy, and then others said there are groups of clergy that just have no familiarity with mental health in general. So Heather?
I would like to, and I'm not good at sharing in chat in the moment because most of my stuff is on my VPN and I'm not on that right now. but I'd like to share some research on the mental health first aid and its effectiveness.
Yeah.
And I always promote informed decisions. I understand the desire to want to learn more about mental health, but I think there's different choices. There's things like emotional CPR and things that are not so much to just identify and report, but actually to provide that support in that immediate time of crisis to help someone work through it and avoid any kind of hospitalization, involvement with law or other things. So I will be more than happy to share some of that. I think I may have shared it with you, Janet.
You did, and I'm gonna add this. So I'm gonna adjust this language because when I say mental health first aid, in your mind, Heather, it goes right to that official program. I'm going to change the language so it doesn't identify a particular group that has controversy. It's really basics of mental health for clergy. Pastor Chris, you have your arms around quite a lot of people, both lay people and clergy. Do you see the need for basic mental health awareness training? This is not the pastoral care, but basics of mental health, comfort zone with mental health issues.
Are you speaking to the clergymen needing training, or the parishioners as a whole?
When we talked, we actually said potentially some of your lay people, lay leaders might need it, but almost across the state of New Jersey, do you see certain portions of the clergy needing some basics?
Almost everybody I know, except for Dr. J here. Yeah. I'm not speaking of those who are on the call, but I'm talking about the ones that I work with. But Dr. J has kind of the interesting combination between, his background in mental health and the various academic degrees he has and the experience he has, and being an ordained minister on top of it. So he brings together a very interesting combination of things. But almost everybody else I know that are in the clerk, at least in my circles and people I know, we all need to come to a better understanding here of the mental health issues. And as Pastor Ron had mentioned earlier, the integration between what we understand the spiritual things to be. And, because in the church world, at least in our type of circles, we're big on praying people through. That's what Pastor Ron spoke of earlier, but we've missed some of the other mental health components, and certainly God has made us body, soul, and spirit. So long answer to the short answer is yes. Longer answer was that explanation.
Well, I appreciate it because you get added life to that item. It's sitting here. It does not have a name of a leader or people, but I'll at least identify, a few people who spoke here of where and when and how do we host at least a day of basics on mental health for clergy. We'll keep that on the agenda and see how we move that forward.
And just one note, as Pastor Chris said, Heather, a lot of times when you're speaking to clergy, the awareness of mental health in general is not there. And so whatever can be provided will be helpful.
Okay, I just shared too also in the chat just recently, the Bazelon Center for Mental Health Law put out a new report. When there is a crisis, call a peer, which is meaning someone with lived experience. Now that can be an attorney, a pastor, it could be many different people, but someone with lived experience of that mental health, substance use, or having that behavioral health crisis. I wanted to share that with you as well. And I invite you to visit any of our wellness centers. And you can really see firsthand how we're providing that support to people with a mental health condition.
Yes. So
those are experienced crisis.
Heather, is the Bazelon Center for Mental Health Law New Jersey or national?
National. Actually, they're at national. They were the driving force behind Olmstead, which it changed the law to force people in. It helped people be in least restrictive settings possible. I'll just say that. It was a groundbreaking piece of legislation.
Okay.
So I'll keep moving just so that we make it come alive. So who's interested in what, we'll keep that on a list to see how we address that this year. host a Care for Clergy retreat. I'm going to ask Pastor Tim to comment on what you already were doing before this group and having the plans. And then Dr. Hines, Pastor Chris, and Pastor Tim, we're going to talk for a few minutes after this closes about what else do we want to do. Give us a view of what you're doing through the Methodist Church.
Sure. So Dale Caldwell and I met this summer right after annual conference, which was in May, and coordinated with the conference office. So the curriculum is completed and is available. We're in the process of organizing a lot of the administrative tasks along with that. What kind of certificate will be earned during this time? CEUs. Onboarding or on-ramping, as they call it, what district superintendents or auxiliary bishops will be involved with inviting clergy to participate with a goal of remote, hybrid, and on-ground starting in the spring of 2025.
2025. Okay. And will that only be for Methodists, or will you open it up to other denominations?
The United Methodist Church wants to start with Methodist clergy, but certainly recognizes its value and interest across different, an ecumenical setting. Whether or not Dr. Caldwell wants to run some kind of beta programming in parallel with that prior to that spring 2025 date is a conversation that we certainly can have. The university certainly has I shouldn't say the resources, has the facilities and has some of the important components to be able to host something like that. However, just like any institution, there are several hurdles and components associated with this. So there is someone who's directly responsible for outside programming that is hosted by the university, as well with other components of the business office that need to decide if they're willing to do this, how they want to do this, what that would look like, especially on ground with the use of some of the residential facilities, as well as cafeteria and those sorts of things.
So you gave some voice to that topic. That's been an important topic. And Pastor Chris, Dr. Hines, and Pastor Tim, we'll just pick that up as soon as we close so I can keep moving. But, we'll see where we want to go for at least one beta test in the state of New Jersey. So some of the other items I'm going to group. We have an intent to influence the inclusion of religious and spiritual leaders in the 988 rollout and a partner in psychiatric care. Influence the inclusion of spiritual competency in the screening of 988 calls, and influence the standard of care for mental health on the ER. So I'll put them together because we'll take a sub-team to actually really work on how do we influence that. But Heather, if you wanted to comment, Heather started an initiative to start to define a standard of care. And that's going to take a while to change, to influence that. What was the piece you said CSPNJ is doing to actually evaluate what is the standard of care right now?
I think, we've been long involved in the advocacy when this new commitment legislation came out to expand the hold time for individuals in a mental health crisis. And when we were looking at the standard of care, I think that's much more difficult to define and have total agreement on. But what we really do know is what is not the standard of care. So what we're looking for now, and I'm working with various individuals across the state and also across the country nationally, because we're seeing this happen, more forced and coercive treatments across the country. And I'm about to post something. It includes my emails. We want to know what's going on. They expanded that hold time from 72 hours to 144 hours. And this could be in any general hospital emergency room where they may not have staff to treat our loved ones. So what does that look like? So if you're hearing stories from your community, your congregation, of them not receiving care, what does that look like? what's happening during that time. And if it's something egregious and you feel that that's not the standard of care, please send me an email. I will link individuals to the right advocacy entities, protection and rights advocacy entities, to help their voices be heard, because we're really trying to make sure that this bill does not continue after the 24 months.
So that's a very specific item that is connected into the documentary. So I'm raising my hand to be a leader in that piece, Heather. So thank you.
Thank you. And in reference to Reverend Sparks earlier, I just did put in some basic meetings where are a good place for you to go and gain information. The Behavioral Health Planning Council, they're responsible for developing these grants that come through SAMHSA and our federal dollars. And it's a good place to learn about different programs and having your voice heard.
Okay.
And I'll pull all of this again and send it out as well. So I'll move it fairly quickly here. We're looking to inform citizens in the state of New Jersey and expand the conversation on all these issues. So Brian is going to take a lead on that to get us into the news, into public news. We're putting some short videos together around Did You Know? Lots of this information is not known. So Brian, do you want to just quickly comment on your intention to get us in the news?
Yeah, I've got a good history and a good rapport, almost an open door policy with a lot of networks, especially in the New York area. So I've got colleagues that are pitching ideas, always pitching stories, but there's two developing areas, and it's been on two local networks, one with Fox and one with CBS, that are specifically targeting the mental health space. They're in current development. CBS is a little bit more developed than the other networks, but it is looking like it's going to be a Saturday program where it talks about what's happening on a regional level. But it's a good starting point to help develop what I'd like to produce and direct as far as a docuseries to bring it to their attention when it's in a good spot.
So very practical movement with Brian taking the lead on that. So that's going to be a fun one. The last few ones, this has been my goal for 44 years, influence one New Jersey hospital, state hospital, to establish a spiritually based and holistic integrative care. So I want to look to see how can I get into Trenton State Psychiatric Unit or someplace in New Jersey with a team and literally influence one floor and show and demo it. So I'm putting my name on that. Thank you for smiling, Heather. I can picture we do it. Host a coalition conference at Centenary University that bridges from the medical school conference. Calvin, I'm just going to put your name and Dale because that was a beginning thought to do a conference up at Centenary University. And the last one is provide consultation on mental health systemic transformation and literally bring all the different stakeholders that have influence on mental health, which includes my old life of the pharmaceutical industry, insurance industry, corporate. I have it on it as an intention with other consultants to influence that larger system, which, I'm sure we'll have many mountains to climb, but I have it on the list and a few names for that. Is there anything off the top of your head now that is an action that you would like to add at this point? And you can also send it after. Heather.
Well, I believe you had on there the expansion of the peer run respite.
Oh, I missed it. Sorry, please.
I was just hearing some data reported today, and unfortunately, we only have 3 in the state, one in Essex, one in Passaic, and one in Middlesex County. Poor folks down in South Jersey, where we live, don't have any, but they're running at an occupancy rate of 95 to 97% this past quarter. And they are only 5 bed availability for a 10-day stay. And, this is such a huge alternative to addressing somebody's mental health crisis, allowing them to stay in their community, not get disconnected from their job, their work, their housing, their social supports, their church, because they can be in respite care and still do all these things if there's one in your county. if
Yeah.
there's one in your backyard, and we don't have one. And at occupancy rates like that and having wait lists, I think that's something we really need to bend the ear of our legislators about.
That is a big one. I want to put another quick point on that. It's something like $200 a night for a peer respite versus whatever, $1,000 or more.
Overall, I think it's $267 a night for a peer-run respite. And you look at then the cost of a state psychiatric hospital, and I don't have all that data on hand, but we obviously know that, one, the cost is going to be much less. Somebody's stay is much shorter. Their interruption on life and their ability to reintegrate into the community is so much easier. Think about all those skills that you lose when you're involved in a state psychiatric hospital. And I'm seeing individuals that have been there 20 plus years. That's inhumane. There needs to be other alternatives.
Yes. I'm glad you didn't. That's one of my favorite. Could we just get some comment, if it's okay to go over a few minutes? Calvin and I actually went up to visit the one in New Brunswick. It's a lovely home. You know, if I was in trouble, I'd want to be shipped there. Who doesn't know about these? You know, Pastor Chris, did you know about these peer respites?
No, I did not.
We also have virtual tours on our website, which I'll put in the chat to everybody. We also have success stories from individuals who have utilized this, because it's a place where when you're not really, we talk about the fear of talking about mental health and the stigma associated in a lot of these communities. And we're seeing occupancy rates in Newark of 95% of individuals utilizing this, in Passaic County, in Middlesex County. That's phenomenal.
Pastor Tim, were you familiar with these? No. So we'll make it very visible, including like the link to the tour, because you can actually see what is it like. But to know that, you know, one of your congregants, if they were in need, you need to know that this exists, that it's a very respectable, fully staffed house.
And low barrier. So if
no
someone
lock
doesn't have insurance, it's not a barrier. All you have to do is be over 18 and a resident of New Jersey experiencing a mental health crisis.
Okay. Any comments or questions on that? Because that's a real gem in New Jersey that many people don't know.
The only question I have, who determines if you get to go to respite versus the hospital when law enforcement is called?
It's a self-referral.
Gotcha.
So this is an opportunity before you get to that need of law enforcement. If you have a community member that you see or they're expressing, I'm feeling a crisis, I don't think I need to go to the hospital yet. Is there a place that I can go? You can pick up the phone. They can call on their own. They call on their own and they do an intake. If someone's not able to go in person, they offer telephone outreach. They also provide a 30-day follow-up after somebody leaves the respite care.
So I'll make it very visible. You know, we do have an idealistic view that we can try to influence the 988 dispatchers and the crisis teams to also know that these exist. That can be a referral as opposed to they go directly to a hospital ER. We're looking to influence that.
They are actually part of the crisis continuum of care through SAMHSA.
The peer respites.
Peer respites.
Yeah.
Well, it's 988, I think crisis housing, the mobile response teams, crisis stabilization units, which those RFPs have not yet gone out. The mobile response teams should be announced in 2 weeks. There's 9 regions. Teams are broken up based off of, I think, the population and need of each area. And then the peer run respites are part of that continuum of care per SAMHSA.
So we finished with some rich and important information. I do like to close on time, but if we can indulge with any comments, to what extent was this valuable to be on here? And do you want to come back as we host these weekly? So Pastor Tim, what was the value for you to be on here with us? And do you want to keep going?
There was certainly information that was valuable and important. As Dale needs me to represent the university here, I will certainly do that as a part of the mission for the university, as well as the, I guess the home, if you will, for the physical home, if you will, for the coalition. It's important for me. Unfortunately, as we've discussed before, this is a bad time.
Yes.
So, but I would not want to drive the entire conversation based on my schedule.
Yeah.
So with that said, I think that I can be a participant. I'm not sure how much influence I have, or how much I have to provide for the group. But certainly, if I can't make it, somebody from the university, I think, would be should be here or could be here to really see what this has, including Kaya, like we talked about, that who is the director of the Wellness Center for Counseling at the university.
Excellent. Yes. Dr. Hines and Pastor Chris, what was the value for you being here? And do you want to continue?
Yeah, I really do think it's fantastic to meet people who understand these problems. That there's a problem with integrating spiritual life into psychology and medicine, and to see that you want to do something about it. But I know a lot of people that talk about this but don't do anything about it. So I'm happy to see that people have a desire to do it. On the respite houses, we were doing that at New Hope Foundation back in 2010 and continuing with that. They have a lot of outlying houses where people go for purposes of respite, as well as some other things. So I have seen that model, and it worked very well at New Hope Foundation. So that's a good thing that you brought up, Heather. I really appreciate that. So I do want to continue on. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Chris?
Yeah, definitely. I want to continue on too. And of course, I don't know where this, comes in at any point, but, we have a 23,000 square foot facility here with 10 acres of land, in any way that could be used as well. We certainly, we're here in Central Jersey, Monmouth County. So I just want to lay that out there too, that, we would be very eager to, open that up to anything that could facilitate this type of thing as well. So it's been an honor to meet everybody. And I'm excited, about the opportunities and the potential, that this particular team has. So I just want to tell you that.
Excellent. Thank you. Reverend Sparks, any comments as we close?
Anytime that we can meet new people and of like mind and to be able to gather information is always beneficial. And I appreciate the Pastor Chris offering Monmouth County, because it's hard for me to get to Hackettstown. And so if there's any way we could do some things down here as well, that would be great. And then Heather, I've seen your name in so many places. And so
I started a little bit of good trouble.
and so I want to follow up with you on a few things. And when we do meet with the prosecutor, make sure that they know that there's programs already existing.
Yeah.
And if you and I can talk before that meeting, and then I can share that with them at that meeting, so that they know that this is not new.
Yeah.
No, I look forward to that. And thank you. When you mentioned you went through the CIT training, I was wondering if you were in when I was actually one of the panel speakers, because we were active in the Monmouth County CIT trainings for quite a bit, doing the Hearing Voices piece and the peer panel.
Which one were you on?
Oh, not in the past year, but to be honest, all these years are blending with COVID.
I went through last year.
I'll let you two talk offline.
Yeah, I went through last year.
So if anyone else wants to say anything, Calvin, you good? You're sticking with it, whether you like it or not.
You know what? It's nice to not only have people that talk about it, but each one of you are really connected in a different system that's actually doing things. And I think we're at a stage where we really need to figure out how to make the doing visible. Yeah. So this is a great opportunity to hear about action things that have been going on.
Yes.
That we aren't even in touch with. So
excellent. So we'll keep it every Tuesday at 7. If we need to meet, one-on-one, small groups, that I think would just expedite and move it forward. So I'll keep you on the list. You show up next week, you'll probably meet some other members that are as passionate as we all are here. So we're going to just stay on for a few minutes with Pastor Tim, Pastor Chris, and Dr. Hines. We're going to talk about that pastoral care and see if we can start to target, where and when do we want to do something for the state of New Jersey. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Reverend Sparks, I hold you to it. I want to hear from you.
Okay, take care.
Have a good day.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you. So Dr. Caldwell will show up, again at some point. And he was the one that said, we really want to do some pastoral care out of the Centenary University, which now that I understand it is in addition. It's different than what's coming out of the bishop, the Methodist Church. So this would be something more like a one day, maybe an overnight, because up in Centenary, they do have residence halls. We did talk about it could be the summer. So that's something, Pastor Tim, we do need to take up with Dale to see if that's something he's actually sponsoring, right?
Right. Again, unfortunately, with how the university operates, these things have great layers, right? So the vice president, who is in charge of campus life, is just one of many components.
Yeah.
And so not having Dale directly involved in approving this kind of programming kind of leaves us in that space of like being on two islands with no bridge. But it's certainly the foundation is there. There's no doubt about it that, like I said, the curriculum is written and ready. It's just a matter of how much control and how much navigation the conference office and the university wants to have in this.
Yeah. I think we're just going to say this stuff out loud. We'll wait for Dale. I'll be talking to Dale to see what is he looking to sponsor in addition to what was already planned, and something for the wider audience around the state of New Jersey across denominations.
I have a question, Chris and Jay. Is Abundant Life the same Abundant Life that's in Hanover?
No, so we're connected with the Church of God, which is based out of Cleveland, Tennessee. So interestingly enough, and I think I'd share this with Dr. Calvin, the roots of our movement, are from the Methodist Church. But we're a Pentecostal church, but we're the Pentecostal that came up from the Methodist movement. That's our heritage, and our seminary, dubs itself as, teaching Wesleyan Pentecostalism, which is kind of unique for a seminary to teach. So we're very familiar with the Methodist, movement. We got friends that are Methodist too, but yeah, we're Church of God, Cleveland, Tennessee, which would be a Pentecostal organization. In fact, I think it's considered the oldest modern Pentecostal organization. We started in 1886, so we're akin to the Assemblies of God, Church of God in Christ. Most of our constituents here in New Jersey, we have about 60 congregations here in New Jersey that fall under the English-speaking overseer. But most of our constituents here are people of color, most notably from the Caribbean, a lot of Jamaican people, a lot of Haitian people. But now our whole movement, here in the United States is not necessarily like that. But here in New Jersey, we mostly reach people of color who have actually immigrated to the United States. I'm not, I told Dr. Calvin that before. I'm not sure what that all signifies or means, but that's just kind of a little short part there of who we are.
Sure.
Can I throw out it looks like there's a northern and there's a southern campus. Is that an idea that we would want to develop? And would there be a consideration of whatever is being done at Centenary? Would it be available curriculum-wise or content-wise to be replicated in a southern thing? Just throwing it out there. Because the travel distance will maybe an issue, maybe not initially. We would just want it in one place and see what we get. But
right, sure. That was the conversation I was having with Janet about the beta test on this. if a small group of clergy folks wanted to get together in a centralized location and engage in one of these modules. Let's just say, Ignatius of Loyola's daily examen, and that could be a few hours of engagement and some time alone with those exercises. And that would kind of give everyone an opportunity to see what that is, see how that fits with their spiritual life, see where that fits in a renewal, spiritual renewal for that clergy member, and then kind of going from there. If folks walk away from that retreat saying, "Oh, I'd like to see what those other modules are," then that's the next step. Or I don't find any harm in meeting with clergy and having these kind of experiences with them, leading retreats that are about meditation, mindfulness, centering prayer, journaling, lectio divina, and fasting. Those are retreats that I think are that aren't that John Wesley doesn't have the corner on, nor does anybody, nor does the Catholic Church. Um, so I think that those could be beneficial to clergy in any group. My thinking, though, is always the smaller the group, and that's always hard to get a commitment. But the smaller the group, the more intimate the group, the more clergy walk away with, boy, this is good stuff. And because number one, it reduces the stress associated with being in a big group and that sort of thing. But more importantly, it allows for space for clergy to interact with each other and with me in dialogue. So, I think that that's something for us to pray about. And I can't, and I certainly, that's a conversation that I would have to have with the auxiliary bishop to say, hey, is this okay to do this? And the other piece to that is, come the summer, come, June, July, and August, the university is, the attendance at the university is down to, makes me available to do some travel. Freehold isn't terribly far; it's not ridiculously far. So, or is maybe meeting in some kind of centralized location. So, if there's a place that you want to meet in between, you want to bring clergy up and meet in between, we could do that, or we could work out something where I come down to Freehold and have one of those modules with the folks that you have. I think in the long term, I think that would be beneficial for the clergy who will be engaged in this initiative for the Methodist Church, because there'll be some things that we'll test out, and that'll be something that your clergy will have to be aware of, that this is beta testing. This is stuff that we've done before, but that we want to do with them. That's this kind of first ideation of what's going to be something later on in this Center for Spiritual Renewal. So there are centers and institutes that fall under the umbrella of the university that have some kind of autonomy, but remain focused on what are the missions of what the university wants to do.
Dr. Hines, did you have any preliminary thoughts you wanted to toss out just to get this topic started? And then I'm picturing, there's 2 or 3 or 4 of us that could get together and just focus on this offline.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm concerned about is, first of all, who developed the curriculum? You said the curriculum, who developed it?
I did.
You folks hear me?
I developed the curriculum.
Oh, you developed it, Tim? Okay. Is it possible for us to see it?
Sure.
We'd like to see the curriculum, see the elements of it, So that's something that I think would be very important for us to move forward, to see exactly how it's set up and so forth, and see if that's something that we could integrate into something here, so that we'll be doing the same thing that you're doing up north at Centenary University. So that's one of the main features that I see in this. And then you wanted to know about meeting. I think that, as my pastor said that, meeting here would be a good thing too. So I can see in the future meeting up north and then meeting down here also, because we have the facility, and we'll be doing the same thing at 2 different places, Northern Jersey and then in Central.
Yeah, and tonight was about just kind of meeting.
So I think that would be an excellent idea.
Can I interject something to keep in mind. One of the difficulties with the spirituality in mental health has to do with associating it with a religious tradition. So, to what degree is Centenary and the Methodist Church willing to expand to language and openness to other faiths besides Christian? The mental health field is dedicated in all of our training to be more secularly neutral. So, how do we impact it and have my work has been trying to create a universal neutral language that still gets to the core of spiritual experience, that can be adapted and used with any religious tradition. So I would throw that out there to keep in mind. If we really want to impact the mental health field, I think it's going to have to be in a universal manner without
Let me ask
diluting
a question on that.
the
Is there any
impact.
accordance with the scriptures, the Bible? Or are we talking about the Quran? We're talking about other traditions outside of the Bible?
If I could comment and just
Yeah.
announce that this is just to start some ideas, not to finish and answer all of them. The two different things are mental health training and all these projects that involve clergy of all denominations. Pastoral care was specifically not teaching anything as much as it was giving a respite and a retreat, a very separate thing. When we started this, we said we wanted to find a place to invite clergy from all denominations. So I just wanted to get us to start talking tonight, but not having to decide. I found out that Pastor Tim has a whole nother project that I didn't even know about. So we don't have to necessarily influence what's going on with the Methodist Church. We can learn from it. So, there are two different things here, and maybe Dr. Hines and Pastor Chris, you can think about what is it you would like to host, even just a one day.
Yeah.
Or
so I think that, if I could interject, is that some of the language we'll probably try to come to an understanding and try to refine as we go forward. But as an example, like I wouldn't say that this group is interdenominational. It's actually interfaith, which means then there could be not only Christians, but I think there's also a rabbi, and there could be. So I think that it's, perhaps I'm mistaken, but I think it's not correct to call it interdenominational. To me, that's more of a Christian piece of language. So I think that obviously when that enters the picture, then it becomes much more complex, even among just as the Christians alone. You have the Christians that are more Bible oriented, and you have others that aren't, so you have some real complexities that begin to develop, but at some point we have to, and then for it then to become interfaith, that makes it even more complex. So Dr. Calvin, is bringing up some very important pieces that at some point have to be explored, and there has to be some sort of understanding on what is trying to be achieved, what can be achieved, and so on and so forth. Because obviously when it comes to religious beliefs and convictions, as Dr. Calvin I know knows, being a pastor's son and such, that obviously there's going to be some strong beliefs and convictions about certain things that can be very challenging to do something that's interdenominational,
let alone
something that's interfaith, so it's pieces that got to be figured out and navigated as you go forward. Right?
Well, one of the ways that, Janet, we haven't talked, but I would envision that the formal New Jersey Coalition for Mental Health, Spiritual, and Religious Leaders would be the place to sort of make those decisions. But so far, we don't even have a formal coalition. So you people here may want to help us figure out how to actually formalize the group that would have these discussions.
And I'm going to just leave that in the minutes and not comment. There is a formal group in New Jersey of religious leaders that cover all the different faiths. Reverend Sparks is our contact there, and that is still to be connected. I'd like to close with two buckets. One, basic mental health training for clergy of any faith is kind of more of a generic, these are basics on mental health, and we're not really getting into different religions on that. It's just you all happen to be a faith leader. And that's actually how we started it November 2nd. So that one's kind of easy. This pastoral care, I'd like to just leave it for whoever wants to host something to think about it, and Pastor Chris and Dr. Hines, maybe you put the structure on it that it's just even through the Church of God, and you start there, or all Christians, or, so there's no absolute on how that works. We just wanted to care for pastors in some way. Yeah. And the option is to use equine therapy as part of it. So I don't want to overcomplicate what we have to do. It's really the hosts. You decide what's easy for you, what works, and the timing. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Yeah.
The conference would like to see this be interfaith. The Methodist Conference would like to see this be interfaith.
Interfaith?
Yes. So that would be a conversation that they would want to have with leaders from other faiths. Yeah.
Wow.
In the long term. And they also want to see this, what they'd like to see is as well, because the United Methodist Church has such a broad connection around the globe that they want to see this also go into different languages.
Okay.
And that said, that it's going to be what's the word I'm thinking of here? They own I'm under orders, right? That's what ordination means, right?
Yeah.
So it belongs to them. So it's not something we could just kind of give away.
I'd like to recommend Pastor Tim, Pastor Chris, Dr. Hines, kind of take this and talk offline as you wish. Sure. I need it off my list, so I focus on the other pieces. Yeah. And then, you just lead it the way, and whoever reports on it at a meeting, it's great. You all decided to do X, Y, and Z, and we just kind of put it on the list and see what's up. Okay. So the great thing is we have representation in two parts of the state who are interested.
Yeah.
Agree.
Sound good?
Good. Yes. It's good.
All right.
Wish you all grace and peace.
Thank you so much. Hopefully we'll see you next Tuesday, and you will again meet more people. And we welcome if you do have somebody you would like to bring, either in the mental health or the faith-based leadership.
And it really is great to have you attend and speak out.
Yes.
Excellent.
All right.
Needs to be said.
Yeah.
Grace and peace.
Yeah. Likewise. Thank you.
Very good.
All right. Take care.